I'm Chris.
I'm Buddy.
And I'm Kara, and welcome to the Business Experience.
Now it's time to meet your hosts. Dr. Chris Alexander has founded over 5 businesses. Kara Turner is the founder of a B2B marketing agency. And Buddy Powers has perfected the product development and commercialization process. Let's get into the episode.
So today is our first episode of 2023. Can you believe it's 2023?
No, I can't. I really can't.
It does not seem like it is today.
I can't put my head around it at this point at all.
Well, today, since it is the beginning of a year, or when this airs, it's the beginning of a year, I want to talk about hitting the ground running with sales, which in reality really starts the year before.
Right.
Because my experience in the past, I have been in sales, and you kind of tend to take your foot off the gas a little towards the end of the year, but then that creates like a first quarter slump, and then you spend the next 2 or 3 quarters trying to get out of it.
Right.
So just like some practical advice on how not to do that, or maybe even just being self-aware about doing it.
Right.
Because between being just tired at the end of the year, all the holiday parties, your clients kind of checking out, it can be very easy to do.
Right.
So, Chris, you've always been really great about building business, and you're very intentional. So tell me kind of how you've managed this, or even if this has even been a struggle with you.
Well, I think it probably always is, because you get toward the end of the year, you're kind of tired, but knowing that if you're thinking 90 days out, right? So if you're thinking at the end of September, okay, I've got October, November, December. I'm already thinking about 2023 and September of 2022. When you get to the end of the year, it's not a big deal, right? So if you're always thinking 90 days out, now the problem is if you're thinking 30 days out, that's the problem. So, we talked about in some of the episodes, the higher you up in the organization, you need to be thinking out. So I'm already thinking about 2024, right? And so we're hiring some people, we're looking at, acquiring equipment, maybe some companies, those kind of things. I'm thinking a couple years down the road. So I think the lower you get in the organization, if you're at the very bottom, you're literally just doing tactical stuff. Go do this or go do that. So I think I've never really worried about it because I'm always thinking ahead, and I tend to not be as reactive, and so I don't think it's been as much a problem.
Yes, it's something I'm learning. I'm not a worrier to begin with, so it's not something I really worry about. But as a business owner, I have to be self-aware of it and start thinking and projecting, because I have thought about when I'm going to hire, how many clients I want to bring on, how I want to break them up, that kind of stuff.
Right.
You're rubbing off on me. So, Buddy, this is straight up your alley. You are the subject matter expert on this.
Yes.
So let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Okay, so most companies want to stuff as much sales before the end of the year so that they can make their numbers look the best for that particular year.
Right.
They're ruthless with that, right? They'll call clients and say, "Do you have any extra budget money left over? Do you need any kind of services before the end of the year because we're selling them at half off or whatever?" There's a number of different scenarios that I've seen where we're trying to maximize sales for that particular year. At the same time, you don't want to lose focus on next year. But when you have a year like this year has been for ADV, where we've hit our goals and stretch goals well before even starting, right about the time you're starting to plan for 2023. So you look at a calendar of events. Typically, it's conferences and shows, and marketing, all of the different annual reviews that you look at. But I feel like most important thing for me is the customers and trying to be intentional with scheduling things with the customers. Now, if there's a key conference, let's say in February, like it is in the pipeline space, or you need to, identify a conference that's a little bit more, for lack of a better word, intimate, where you're trying to approach a client about certain things that we're working on and testing here, which we're doing, that's really important. And you need to set that up, before you come out of the first. Because once you get, I can tell you, I've been there where we came out of the first because we were so focused on last year. To Kara's point, we're like, okay, what do we do now? We're just clueless on the next year. So because we work so hard. Now, we had a valued effort, we maximize sales, But then, now it's like, okay, we're lifting our head up from, the arena of fighting for that particular year, and now we're going into next year, and it's just a bad place you want to be.
Well, I think we've also talked about the DNA of our company is we're always looking forward. It's like you and I were talking the other day. It's like, okay, what do we have lined up going into the new year? So then it's not like going over a speed bump. It's like you're just transitioning into the new year because you've already thought about that before.
Yes. Well, you have I know you have an acronym for it. Some Excel spreadsheet that shows everything.
The invoice tracking sheet, the ITS.
Yes.
Yep.
So you have that, which is very helpful because it's visual.
So should I describe it?
Yes.
So everybody around here gives me a really hard time. I like spreadsheets. I like colors. And so my ultimate's a colored spreadsheet. So I started doing this, guys, probably 10 years ago in my previous employer. So anyway, when I brought it into ADV. So what I'll do is I can tell you, even now we're populating, I can tell you what we're going to build in March of 2023. So when we sit down throughout the year, and so for me, it helps me know if I look out 6 months and we don't have work, we can go get it. And it's amazing to me. I don't know many companies that do that. I mean, even the traction thing doesn't have something like that. So I think that invoice tracking sheet has really become part of our DNA. And it's helped us, I think, grow at the 56% because we're always thinking, okay, if you're slow in September and you're in March, you need to start thinking about it because, we all know you don't just whip up work out of the thin air, that it takes time taking people to lunch, going to conferences. And so sometimes you're executing work you've sold 9 months before that.
Well, I think it helps to be able to project out your what you're going to be invoicing because then you're not scared and you're desperate to get work. In a way, it's kind of like marketing. If you wait to do marketing until you need marketing and you don't have work, you're behind. You need to be doing everything in advance.
Well, and it's really interesting. We've all been working for a while. Some of us longer than others, but is statistically out of 100 people, the number of people who are good in sales, my gut feel is probably 2 to 3%. Okay, and especially in engineers, it's probably lower than that because sometimes salespeople you have to be more of an extrovert. I also think the same thing about vision. So what we're talking about is a combination of vision, and I literally think probably out of 100 people, you might have 1 or 2 who are visionaries. So the problem is if you're in a company, and I think we've probably been associated with companies that you're lacking people who are good in sales and you're lacking people who are not good in visionaries, you can't grow your company. So those two things, in my opinion, kind of work together.
Yes. I also think having a vision creates a culture for your company, which helps with sales. Everything works together.
That's correct.
So
you have the right people and you have a good vision, things seem to work out.
Yes.
What did Jeremiah say? People without vision perish.
All right, I'm going to be more visionary. Maybe that's what's been going on. Okay, so what are some strategies that you use to combat end of year sales burnout? Because that's a big thing by the time you get to the end of the year.
Yeah, I think strategy and execution for the next year, you set a mindset. You are cramming as much, some of us out there are cramming as much as they can in that particular year. So it's kind of refreshing and nice to think about next year. You are going to have some break, hopefully, with the holidays and Christmas, but at the same time, you need to look, forward. So what I recommend is, if you're going to build a schedule with a client, you first, before you start calling clients, you pick out the best possible schedule that could work for your calendar, right? So you have a lot of different events that are probably placed in there, and you say, look, if I'm in this particular area on that particular week, it would be great if I saw these people on that week. And so you start from there, and hopefully, and more times than not, if you're out in front of it, you'll be able to build that schedule. And, so it's not only refreshing, but it also is a positive momentum, whether you've had a bad year or a good year.
So when I was doing sales, cold calling, that kind of stuff, I had all my clients who, I guess my ideal clients on a spreadsheet. I showed you this when I first started with you, and I sorted by zip code. So when I made an appointment with someone, I went to my spreadsheet and looked at everyone in that zip code and mapped them out. And I had an app on my phone and literally put in the 15 people I was going to stop at, and it just routed me to each person and then ended me at home.
I was very impressed by that, I'll be honest with you.
Oh, thanks. I thought that was just common sense, but apparently not.
for efficient.
I guess that's the mom in me being efficient.
Yep.
So I like that strategy, like planning with one person, probably your like top clients that you really want to see, and then planning other people around that.
Yeah, so when you go through your vision part, you're looking at, and your goals especially, where you have key strategic clients that you're going after, right? You're going to be 80% sometimes, probably more times than not. People don't realize that the top 10 or even less of their client base is 50 to 60% of their business.
Yeah.
So you want to organize where if you're going after a big fish or a bunch of new markets, right, that you're trying to go after that has a lot of big players in it that you've never done work with. So if you can organize it and fit it into your calendar and be intentional about it, I think you get a better shot, especially because you're talking to them about, hey, you want to make them feel important. You're going to be one of the first clients I'm going to see at the beginning of the year. I have all this new stuff. We're going to come out very excited, and we want to, try to show you some business cases and value propositions that you haven't seen before.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So, Chris, how do you combat the end of year sales burnout, or just kind of burnout in general that you get towards the end of the year?
I think we all feel that way. I know, like last year I got COVID, during Christmas. I just laid around the house for 2 weeks. And my family was like, because I'm not normally like that. I'm normally kind of bounce off the wall. And I was like, I just sit there and stare at the wall. And I was like miserable, So one of the things I think, if you look at what are the causes of burnout, sometimes it's lack of fun, right? So when you're enjoying things and everybody's having fun, the word burnout doesn't even come to mind. So one of the things that we started doing, and Wendy and I started doing this probably 10 years ago, is every Christmas we have our popcorn list. Okay, and Buddy helped this year. So we have a list, and we probably send it out to probably 50 people. And so as a matter of fact, today I was on the phone with a client in Canada, in Calgary, and I talked to him. He's like, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know, last week got the popcorn and going to take it home. The family were going to eat it, and we talked about work." But, we've done this for a long time, so our clients have kind of come to expect it. So for me, one way to avoid burnout is for things to be fun. And it's stuff like that. People know I love popcorn. I eat popcorn probably every day. We've got 2 popcorn machines at our house, and I'll make a bunch on the weekend, and I'll just munch on it all week long after I run on the treadmill for 35 minutes. So
Popcorn and Skittles.
Exactly. Yeah, I still do it. I do eat this every day. So I think some of it is to avoid the burnout is just try to make things fun. Y'all naturally have more fun personalities. Okay. Tanya, my wife, has fun personality. I have to kind of work at it, but after having done it for a long time, it's part of our DNA as a company.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Well, any last advice we have on sales and not slumping in that fourth quarter? I think my biggest piece of advice is just keeping it top of mind, being aware that that's the tendency that you have, and creating strategies around it so you don't do that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think one is sales is everybody's job. Right. So sometimes you tend to think in organizations like, well, it's Buddy or Kara who's running the organization, it's their job to do sales, but everybody in the company, because sales is an experience, right? So like if you go into a restaurant and the person behind the counter is energetic and fun, like you get at Chick-fil-A, they're involved in the selling, right? And you may be more likely to buy more food versus if they don't even talk to you. And so I think that's, to me, something that's really important, is that in the organization you help people understand everybody in the company is involved in sales, not just the person closing the deals.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That makes your job easier.
Yes, it does. I love the teamwork component of that. And as far as suffering through burnout, I used to run into burnout when I lost my vision on what I'm trying to do. I don't suffer through that as much as I used to because of the natural grind of sales as I expected. I've been told that you have to be like a goose and wake up the next day and forget about what. It's a
new day.
Yeah, it's a new day, and it's the same way with the year. And so if you have a bad series of, I've been to all 50 states for sales, and actually all the provinces in Canada for pipeline sales. So there have been bad days, and you kind of wake up and you got to say, look, I got to keep going after it with my zip codes and my smartphone, and I'm ready to hit the ground, to do the ground and pound. And that's awesome. I love that. I miss that. Now I'm more at a stage in my career where I'm visionary and I'm looking out across the pond and like, look, where do we need to spend our time and effort and money? And at that, I feel like with that, we go back to our core values as we're sifting through the rocky times, and that's my advice. As you're going through something like COVID, or you're going through a tough time, either personally or professionally, you got to have some core values that really hold you, personal and from the company. And so for me, I'll tell you mine is just really this was taught to me by a great mentor, to really try to make the person on the other side of the table look good. Look good in the organization, look good to his peers, compliance people, anyone that he's in contact. If you do that, you always are going to have sort of that, serving spirit to I guess have business and have that.
Well, I guess when that Zig Ziglar's book, See You at the Top.
Yeah.
And so the idea is if you're always helping other people, is like you're going to get there with them at the top.
Yeah, and I really don't care if I'm at the top. I'm not trying to be the next vice president of anything. I really want the people that we work with to feel like they've had a good experience with. The reason why I'm here is because I think that everybody on the team feels that way.
Yeah.
I think he wants to be vice president of business development.
I heard that too.
Okay, integrator.
That was awesome. That was pretty slick.
It was unintentional.
I know, I was like, wow.
It was unintentional. I am happy with my role.
Yeah, we're all going to watch that and eat popcorn next week. So.
I've noticed you haven't had any books. Is it because of the chaos of the
No,
movie?
because they're all in a box somewhere. So anyway, and I was like this morning, I was like, well, they're all in a box somewhere. So
I have a book.
You do?
Yeah, it's okay. But it's in the David Metallurgical.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for joining us on this episode. Join us for our next episode where we're going to be talking about work-life balance. See you then.
bye.